So with year 3 of Genshin being finished, I actually wanted to finally make my own tier list of Genshin characters in the meta. Like, wow, that's such an original idea, right? Anyway, I'll be basing this off of my experience playing Genshin ever since release until now. I'll be basing my criteria on these factors. So 1, how relevant have these characters been in the past Abyss rotations? 2, how well do they excel in teams, or how useful are they in multiple teams? Or do they have any niche that they are viable in? And lastly, are they actually the best options, or are they side grades to other certain characters? So, and I'll also be looking at like how much investment do these characters need in order for them to be viable. So yeah, I'm just gonna get started so this video doesn't take like a billion years. Okay, I'm gonna adjust this tier list. So like S tier, I can keep it like that. I'll just put like rename B to bad. And like, so the first characters in this list is MC. So like, okay, I have to separate this into multiple MCs, but since Denjo MC, I'd rate as a B tier, because he is really good at applying Denjo and he's free, so everyone has him. And if you don't have Nahida, then he's pretty much like the only option you kind of have as a really good Denjo applicator besides like Collei. But even then, I would honestly prefer using DMC for most scenarios. Like Collei has her own niche, which I'll get into, but I think as a generalist, DMC is pretty much the best. Anemo and Geo I would put at C. Geo Traveler actually does have a niche right now with Navia in Navia teams, so she has that going for her. For Anemo, like she's not bad. If you don't have any other Anemo character, then she can work. Like she has the swirling ability, so it's always gonna be good. You just have to kind of position yourself properly and it will function to some certain degree. So it's not like the worst version of Traveler. Now if we're talking about like Hydro main Traveler, yeah, she'd be like in the bad tier, like D tier. So I'm just not even gonna mention her because I think she's just so bad that she doesn't even deserve to be mentioned in the tier list. So yeah, Jean. Jean is A right now. Because I mean, ever since Freyna, she does have that niche of healing your team up to full health just like instantly and being able to swirl Hydro for Freyna. So yeah. Lisa does have an actual niche. I think she does. I haven't really tested it that much, but then you could use Prototype Amber with Lisa and she can do stuff with Freyna maybe. I haven't really looked into it, so I'm not really that confident putting her in C, but I'm sure she has some niche at least, since she's a catalyst. She can hold TDDS. So she has some niche, I'm pretty sure. Amber used to have a niche, because Amber could have worked with like Hu Tao as like just pyro character that you could use to swirl pyro with Hu Tao, because she's the only pyro character that applies pyro that quickly with her burst. So you're actually able to swirl with Kazuha and double swirl with Xingqiu. So that's one thing that she has. But I don't know. I don't see that niche being that viable anymore. I mean, it still is. It's still usable. So I'll just put her in bad for now, but at least not the worst character. Noelle, I put Noelle in because Noelle actually is pretty good now. She is good with Freyna. Like, she has a niche with Freyna. Wait, I think I need more tiers actually. There, I adjusted the colors to make, hopefully it makes more sense now. So yeah, I would put Noelle in C, or why am I? C. I'd put Noelle in B tier because Noelle does have a really strong niche with Freyna. She's still not like amazing or anything, and she's pretty much just better than Ito at this point. So I think you'd classify her as B with her own niche now as a solid F2P damage dealer. Oh, by the way, I'm gonna just say this now. I'm gonna classify all these characters, all the 4-star characters as C6. Just because I think constellations and 4 stars are a lot easier to get. Well, at least for the older 4 stars, they're really easy to get. I'm gonna do it on a case-by-case basis on the other characters. But then for the early 4-star characters that you can just get in the shop, like, I could give them like a C6. And if she's not C6, I don't think she's good at all. She's probably like B. But her C6 actually gives her enough like damage output for her to at least land her at B tier. I think people have been underestimating Barbara, because Barbara actually is really good in quick bloom teams if you don't want to sacrifice your Farina slot to the Quickloop team with someone like Keqing. And I've used this team a lot. So I'm like pretty much an expert on how this team works. And the rotations line up like extremely perfectly. She can run TDODS. Like she actually is really good, and I think people are really underestimating how good Barbara is. She doesn't really even need investment at all. Like I think she is a solid C tier character, and like people just been not looking into how good her quick win team capabilities are, especially because she heals also. Next is Sucrose. Sucrose is a character that I think is still really good until now. People just think that just because Kazuha exists, that Sucrose doesn't have any more like use in Genshin, which I think is just like it's just not true. I think Sucrose is still an amazing character. I'll just put her in A because I mean while she can't group like as well as Kazuha, she does have her own niche in certain teams, like especially in aggravate teams where you can't swirl with Kazuha. Adding to the fact that she's also an amazing on-field driver for Nemo, where she carries teams like Sucrose National or Azer. So she has an amazing use case in that as well. And those teams are very good. Those are competitively viable with 5-star teams. Fischl. I see a lot of people putting Fischl in A. And I think I would put her between A and S because like while she isn't as universal as like all the other characters in S tier, she single-handedly carries the aggravate reaction because A4 passive can proc aggravate so many times that I would say that she kind of just carries aggravate. She procs aggravate more times than any other on-field character in the game. Besides that, she's just a great character in general. She has a really short on-field time with near 100% uptime on her Oz skill. She can also generate a ton of particles and she's just the best electro battery in the game. Kinda would put her in the A tier or almost S. Like almost S. Next is Mona. And again, another character that I've seen a lot of people kind of just like forget is decent. She has her downsides where her burst lasts really short. The debuff on enemies only lasts around 6 seconds, which clearly isn't enough for a lot of characters to take advantage of. Like I mean, of course she has her niche in the freeze teams, but I really don't think freeze teams are that good right now. And Kokomi exists, right? So in that sense she kind of has fallen off a bit. But I think she does have a good use case for the front-loaded damage. A lot of teams like run front-loaded damage these days, so like Navia or Hutao, especially with the burst. So if you run like Mona with like Prototype Amber as a pseudo hero, like Maiden's Mona, actually does work, and I'm not even capping, it does really work well. Like she does have her own niche. Although to be fair, I've been running my Mona at C3, but because I mean her constellations don't provide her that much, where I'd say that it would put her in B, but I think she would go on like a C tier. I think she's there. Kaeya is good. I mean, it's not amazing. I mean, he has the Kaeya Melt teams and like other like fridge teams you can run, and if you invest in him enough, like he can pretty much clear content just as well as like, well, not just as well, but he can clear content decently. I mean, not amazingly by any means, but like he's a C tier character in terms of like clear content. Diluc, I don't really like Diluc. I think Xiangyun with like Xiangyun coming out in 4.4 would really help Diluc because he has the highest plunge multiplier in the game, and Xiangyun buffs plunge damage. So I think he can go up higher once she comes out. Right now, I don't think Diluc is just really any better than any of the other characters. I think he's the worst. He's the second worst standard banner character right now, so he's pretty much outclassed by every other pyro DPS in the game. I would put him at like the top of D right now. Razor has one niche, has one like decent, well not even, it's like a almost decent team, like the Thundering Furry. I've tried running it on someone else's account. I've gotten mixed results because I don't want to level up my own Razor, so I don't think he's still really that good in that team. I would say he's like at the bottom of C or like better than Kaeya. So yeah, I mean it's one niche team that's not even good. It only works against boss enemies that can't really get knocked back. So yeah, Bennett. Yeah, do I even have to explain why Bennett's in this? Like, I mean, he's still like he's still almost the best healer in the game. He can generate the most pyro particles among any pyro character. He gives the biggest buff, like, you know, He's pretty useful in like most teams. So next, we have Beidou. And a lot of people have said that Beidou has fallen off, and I disagree to some extent. I mean, because we've been getting a lot of boss type enemies in Abyss lately, and Beidou just really doesn't like that. And even in some scenarios, like when enemies have like a ton of HP, like Beidou can't really keep up with the rest of the characters. So I still see her really strong niche, and she does provide a lot of value, especially with characters like Nouvellette, where her C4 I think, which gives her a shield and stagger res, like it does help like keep Nouvellette from getting staggered. So I do like that about Beidou. So I would keep her at like B. I'm not sure if I would put her above or below Noelle, but I think that she deserves that spot. Keqing. I've used Keqing a lot. She's my number one go-to aggravate on fielder, because Keqing is really, really flexible in her rotations. We're not like hard luck into staying on field with Keqing because she can just switch between characters, unlike Sino. So I actually really prefer running Keqing, even though technically her damage output is lower than Sino. I still prefer using her, and I prefer using her over Yao because it's just not as clunky, and her burst just feels a lot better to use and gives you a lot more iframes where you can just dodge attacks, and you can sometimes run like a team without a healer. So honestly, I'd put Keqing at A tier. I think people have also been underestimating how good Keqing actually is, and I really think Keqing is just super underrated. Xiangling, I would put an S tier, just because, you know, Xiangling is basically the best pyro DPS in the game, like by far. Like, she does so much damage off field that it's not really even close. And she used to be like solely tied to Bennett, but there are existing teams that exist nowadays that don't even use Xiangling and Bennett together, and it works pretty well, I guess. So I would actually put Xiangling here in S tier. Like, she is very, very viable, and honestly is still one of the best characters to use in the game. I'm still kind of contemplating whether she should go on the top of A or S, but for now I'll stick with S. Chongyun. I mean, Chongyun does have that one niche, I guess, where against Hydro Lectors, you can like break their shields. Like, if you don't have any other character to do that, like, I guess he can do that. Especially during that time when Abyss had those like skill cooldown extensions, which kind of made playing any other character just abysmal to use. Like, I guess he was there that time. He doesn't really do that much damage though with his burst. It's really underwhelming unless you like super invest in him, which I don't really recommend because he doesn't really have any niche. Yeah, there. Xingqiu, S tier until now. Like, his Hydra application is better than any other character in the game, or just in any like team that needs Hydro. He's basically the go-to option. And ever since the release of Dendro, ever since the release of Farina, like, it hasn't really negated how good Xingqiu is. People also tend to forget just how good Xingqiu's defensive capabilities are, because his main swords give you so much stagger resistance and so much HP that he can be ran as your sole defensive option and it would still be perfectly comfortable to play. He also has amazing nuking capabilities, especially with Zac Sword, where you can double vape his E 4 times, which results in around like 300k damage off bat. So yeah. Qiqi, I mean, people say that she's gotten better with Farina, but I don't think so. Like, not really, because it doesn't ignore the fact that she has that gigantic black hole of energy, because she doesn't generate energy. You can't ever get your burst. Since both her and Farina are very energy hungry, it just results in you having like two characters that can't generate enough energy to get their bursts up and die. So I really don't recommend having Qiqi as your healer. So I would put her like almost, I mean, she does have her use as a solo carry. She has her use as an on-field carry on sometimes if you want to do that, especially with the clamp set, I guess. But it's not really good. So I kind of put her in like I would put her below Geo and Anemo Traveler. Venti. Venti is good. Like, I don't have him. Okay, for one, I don't have it, but I've used him like several times in other people's accounts. And I've had some big headaches when Venti doesn't work, because Venti just doesn't work in scenarios where enemies can't be grouped up. So it's just awful to use. In the Abyss Chambers where he does work, he works really well. So it's kind of like this duality of him being very good and him being very awful to play. So I would put him in like, because he works extremely well in scenarios where he works well. So you only bring him in those scenarios, right? So I would put him in A. I'd still put him in A because you don't bring characters that aren't good in scenarios to scenarios that they aren't good in, right? So yeah, I'd put him in an A. Klee, Furina did buff Klee, but Klee doesn't really get damage buffed by Furina. Klee just enables Furina to vaporize more, which is like, I mean, okay, sure, that's something, but it doesn't really make Klee herself like deal more damage. So I guess that's one use case that she does. That's the only buff that she got like throughout the game so far. So I'd put her in like an, I don't know, because Linny is just a better Klee. In that scenario, Linny is just a better Klee. So you wouldn't really actively pull for Klee unless you really like Klee. So I would put her at like the bottom of B. If you don't have Linny, like I guess you would go higher. But if you do have Linny, yeah, you probably put her in B. Childe has been relevant for every Abyss ever since the day he was released. So I don't think he has fallen off that much. Although again, Noelle, I guess, kind of diminished his role. But even then, he's still an amazing Hydro on-field AoE Hydro applicator. So I honestly still would put him in around like above, I don't know. I wouldn't put him, I would only put him above Keqing because Keqing has alternative characters that he uses that are technically better than her, but aren't really. I'll put Childe above Keqing. Next is Diona. Now, Diona has pretty bad healing for Furina. Like, her healing is so slow. So, yeah, that's the problem. Actually, there are some ways to mitigate her slow healing, which is the fact that you can time your switches based on her healing, but it's not, like, intuitive. She does provide a lot of particles, so if you really need, like, a lot of healing and a lot of particle generation, and also consolidating that shielding role, then Diona actually is a decent option. So I'll put Diona above at the C tier. Actually, I might put her B or C. I think she does enough where you could be in both, in the middle. I'll put her, I guess, at the bottom of B for now. Zhongli is a character for comfort. I mean, you know, nowadays Zhongli is actually very relevant because enemies in the Abyss can just freaking one-shot you. Especially that Hydro Golem can just like instantly kill you if you're not careful. And if you don't have a strong enough shield, you can basically just die in one hit. So I would put Zhongli, like, honestly, I think I would actually rate him a lot lower before, where enemies don't really deal as much damage. But now that enemies can basically one-shot you, I'd put him like at an A. Because sometimes you can just really trivialize difficult content. Yeah, do I even need to... Albedo, yeah, has a niche at least with Geo characters. He can generate a lot of energy for them, and while his flower that he summons can be really annoying sometimes because they can just keep landing on boss enemies and they just instantly disappear. If you play him right, he can function like well. But again, he only really is viable in Geo teams. I don't really see any use for him outside of that. And his burst is just completely useless for most teams. So, I don't know. I guess I'd put him like here. Because he does have like a solid niche with Navia, especially since her release. So yeah. Ganyu. Where do I put Ganyu, honestly? Ganyu is a character that I've made a video on her before talking about how good she is. And I don't really stand by that as hard as I did before. Because, I mean, of course, power levels of Genshin has slowly been increasing. And Cryo as a whole has not been in the best spot, especially ever since like Nilo's release, because it kind of just invalidates the reason that people play freeze teams. Because for me, I play freeze teams because they are very good in AoE and they're very safe in dealing with AoE scenarios. But why play safe when you can just kill enemies before you die, right? So I don't really see that big of a reason to play freeze Cryo characters. But if Cryo has more relevant use cases, I think Ganyu can go higher, especially because her burst is still pretty good. Like, I think her burst is more valuable than her charge attacks. But yeah, right now it's not been very good for Kaeya characters, so I kind of would put her. I mean, she's still a decent unit. Like, she can still clear content because she still does a lot of damage. But honestly, I'd put her like here. Xiao, I don't have him, but I've played him in other people's accounts. He's alright. I still don't really like playing like the plunge attack. But I guess Xiangyun is gonna buff him, and he's been getting a lot of buffs also with Freyna. So there's that. I'd put him here because I don't really have that much things to say about him. I mean, he's good, but yeah, that's pretty much it. He's okay. Hu Tao is still the best single target damage dealer in the game. Like, if you don't look at, well, I mean, okay, he has been facing competition lately with Alhaitham, but if you're looking into pyro DPS characters, then of course Hu Tao is pretty much like the premier like single target pyro on field damage dealer. So she's still like really good. I'd put her in A tier, top of A tier. I think people, well, okay, I'm looking at this at the lens of C6 Rosaria. She can also proc a high refined Fab Lance pretty often, so she becomes a better battery than Diona. I don't see the problem where because enemies knock her out of her E animation, but I've had that experience. I really see that as a big problem. Her crit rate buff isn't as big as I want it to be, but I mean, she still has a solid niche, and I think she's better than Kaeya, especially for reverse melt teams. So I don't know. I'd put her like above. I don't know. Above. I don't know. Maybe above Main Traveler and below Barbara. So Yanfei is a character that I actually use a lot, even though she's kind of just like a downgrade to Yoimiya. Well, I feel like she's a side grade to Yoimiya at C6, but at C0 she's kind of a downgrade. So I'll just put her at like a B tier because she's just a downgrade to Yoimiya. You can play her as like a shielder if you have C4, but outside of that, well, I'm not sure if it's C4 or what constellation that is, but you can play her as a shielder or a TDODS buffer, I guess. But then her burst is just really annoying to get up because it's really expensive. But she's better than Klee, I think. I feel she's better than Klee. I'd probably put her at like... She has more AoE capabilities than Yoimiya, so I actually kind of like her at C6 more than Yoimiya. So I'll put her like... here. I'll put her like... I don't know if I put her above Noelle though, so... yeah, I'll put her there. Maybe above Noelle. Actually, yeah, I think I'd put her above Noelle because I've enjoyed using her more than Noelle. Eula, I hate Eula. Now, I know a lot of people like simp hard for Eula, but I really cannot live with her playstyle because her playstyle is just like the worst. And even then, like if I'm looking at this objectively, her damage output is just not. It's not worth having her on field. Like her best team right now is just Hyper Bloom team, which is just like okay. And I don't know. She requires so much investment for her to even be half decent. And even then, you need constellations for her to be any good. Like at C0, I don't think she is viable anymore. Her kit kind of just requires you to be lucky in resetting your Abyss rotations, which I don't like. And yeah, being physical, which Mihoyo kind of just forgets exists. She doesn't really have like a good enough support where it just saves the reaction. Because I mean, there are so many enemies in Abyss that kind of resists physical. So it doesn't really make sense to me. I kind of put her... I don't know, I put her like above Razor. But yeah, I really just... I don't like her. Kazuha is an amazing character, and I wouldn't say he's required right now. Like ever since Furina came out, I think Kazuha kind of just has kind of fallen off a bit, but not to the point where he's not good anymore. He still has really strong teams, and he's still like pretty much one of the best animo characters, if not the best animo character in my opinion. But I admit that he isn't as necessary as before, especially because like there are teams that exist that don't need him, like Nilo teams don't need him, or Hyper Bloom teams don't need him. So there are teams that exist that can live without Kazuha right now. So that's why I'm putting him at A, even though I still think he's really good. And especially because his grouping is just amazing. Ayaka. She's the one that suffers the most when I say that Kaeya is just not as relevant as it was before. So it's kind of like the same problems with Ganyu, except she's still like good in her niche. But again, with the existence of like Bloom teams and with just so many other options, you really don't have a reason to run her. And she also needs like a lot of investment, which is to really get free steam running. So I really don't think that she has that big of a niche right now. Like I put her at top of B tier because yeah, she doesn't really, and especially because nowadays all the enemies in every chamber has at least one chamber in each side has enemies that can't be frozen. which is very annoying. Next is Yoimiya, and I know a lot of people have been saying Yoimiya has been really good now, but I really don't think Yoimiya is that good. Like, I've ran Yoimiya several times, and she's just not good as people have been like praising her about. She's good, but not amazing. I mean, I don't have a 5-star weapon on her. I use the R5 Rust, and I don't really think anything could justify me putting her at 8 here right now. Like, she's fine. She's better than Risley or like Scaramouche or like Xiao. So I'd put her at like the, or is she better than Xiao? Actually, I don't think she's better than Xiao. I'd put her like 1 tier below Xiao. Sayu. Sayu. I mean, she heals, which is good. She's just a downgrade of Jean in every way. So unless you have Jean, if you don't have Jean, she's fine. But if you have Jean, she's pretty bad. So I'll put her like above. I don't know. I don't even want to put her above Diluc because her gameplay is just not very fun, and it's just not very intuitive in my opinion. So I'll put her like D. And if you don't have Jean, I'll put her at like above. Like I'll put her like a B tier if you don't have Jean. But if you have Jean, then don't even bother. Raiden has her rational team, which is really good. It's good against boss enemies, which there are a lot of in this chamber. So I mean, I put her really high on this list, and she's pretty much the best Hyper Bloom user in the game, aside from someone like Cookie. But then if Cookie didn't exist, she'd probably be an S tier. But since she exists, I'd probably put her in A. I'll put her like, I don't know if I want to put her above Fischl or not. She can also be an aggravate driver, so she can consolidate that role as well. So I kind of maybe put her above, I don't know. I wouldn't really put her above Fischl yet, because I think Fischl still does way more to justify her being above Raiden. Sarah, I've not really built my Sarah, and I don't have her at C6. But C6 Sarah, if I recall correctly, it's around 60% crit damage, which is a big buff, I'm not gonna lie. But still heavily competes with Bennett in terms of buffing. So at C6, she is a good like substitute, but I still prefer running Fischl over her. Yeah, at C6 should be here, I think. Or because it's her own niche, right? So at C6, I'd put her at like here. At C0, I'd put her at like here. at here. At C0. So if I'm gonna get like the if I'm gonna get the mean of that, I'd probably put her at like here. Yeah, I think that's right. Kokomi. Ever since Farina came out, I think Kokomi has a new niche, which is a solo Hydro driver, which makes sense, I guess. I mean, she's still not like amazing in it. I don't think it's an amazing team or anything, but I mean, that's the thing. And she can also work in Sukokomon or in freeze teams, in bloom teams. So she has a lot of use cases. It's not the best use case, especially ever since Farina came out. It did diminish her viability by quite a bit, but I wouldn't think that it's to the point where she's not really good. So I'll put her above Childe. Maybe above Jean as well. I'm not sure. I'd put her above Jean. Aloy, I mean, I can think of a niche which is just like energy generation as well, like Diona. But if you don't have Diona, she's pretty much just useless. Yeah, so I'll put her like bad. Toma. Oh no, sorry. Why did I put Ningguang? Ningguang. Again, she has that niche with Navia where she can run TDODS and buff Navia, but it's not very good. So yeah, I'd put her at like, I don't know. I'd put her at below Barbara. Below. GOMC works better with. Honestly, I've had better experience playing with GOMC than I've been playing with Ningguang, and her own DPS is just not high enough to clear today's Abyss without enough investment. So she really requires a lot of investment for her to function well. So yeah, I put her here. Ito, he kind of requires C6 Goro to be like at least even like good, but even then he's not that good. Even with C6 Goro, like he's fine, but not to the point where I'd say he's good. So honestly, His solo Geo teams aren't amazing. His right now, since we don't really have a Geo support that can heal, besides Noelle, he's pretty much just worse Noelle. But I think it would change if we get a Geo healer in the future, which currently we don't. So yeah, at least I'll put him at the top of C if we have a C6 Goro. But I don't really think that he deserves that, honestly. Also, I'll put up, since I think the B slot's kind of crowded, I'll put Klee down here as well. I don't think Klee is really even that good, unless you have, since Klee is just basically a downgrade to Linny at this point. I'll put Klee like above Ito since Freya came out. So yeah. Goro at C0, he's pretty bad. At C6, he's probably here somewhere. Or no, not even here. Because, again, Geo teams aren't good. So he's not going to be buffing something that's amazing. I'd probably put him at like a C tier. Like with Ito. Since Ito isn't really even that good, I'll put Goro. Because, I mean, he does support Noelle to a very decent degree at C6. But you need C6. And if you don't have C6, he's not that good. And he does have significant energy problems as well, which I've actually faced a lot when running him. So yeah, there's that. You need Exile with him. Next is Shenhe, and I think Shenhe has just been like suffering along with Ayaka in the fact that Cryo's just not been good. So yeah, she's not really a must-have support, and she's a 5-star, which is kind of right now. So I kind of would put her. I mean, she's still good, right? I mean, if you're running Ayaka, she's gonna be a good support, but not to the point where I'd say that she's like B tier. I mean, I would put her. I don't know if I would want to put her at the top of C. Maybe like below Ito and above Goro. Yunjin. I've seen a lot of clears with Yunjin and Noelle, and I see the value in it, but I still don't think that Geo support for Noelle. I still think that's Goro or Albedo, especially because of her own significant energy issues, which is a big problem also for her. And she doesn't really work that well with any other. Like, she doesn't work well with Ito. I wouldn't really run her with Navia. So in other teams like Ayato carry or Yoimiya carry, she's also not really the best slot in those teams, because those teams aren't really that good to begin with. Like for Yoimiya teams, you'd rather want like a shielder, which is Zhongli, and then you also want a good character that can vaporize, which is Yulad or Xingqiu. And then if you want a damage buffer, you'll have Bennett. So she doesn't really have a slot that you can use her in. So I would kind of just put her below Goro, below Barbara. I don't know. I wouldn't put her. I'll put her there, since she does perform well. I guess with sometimes she performs well with Noelle, and you need C6 also. So honestly, I'll put her below Barbara. Yaya is a character that is statistically better than Keqing in aggravate teams when you just go by numbers alone. And yeah, I just don't really like her playstyle, because I still feel that it leaves you very vulnerable to getting one-shotted by enemies if you're not careful. But by numbers alone, she is better than Keqing. So I'd just probably put her beside Keqing in that sense, but slightly below because I don't really like using her as much. Ayato has kind of just been outclassed by Noelle in almost every way. I still think Ayato has one good niche outside of standard teams, which is like, running him in Dilo Bloom teams, which I think is pretty good. But outside of that, I don't really think he has that big of a niche. I still think he's better than Ayaka, honestly, because again, freeze teams are just not good right now in Abyss. It hasn't been really good they've been good in Abyss where you plan to switch out like midway to a different team that can handle boss enemies that can't be frozen. So, but then ever since Noelle was released, it kind of lowered the value that Ayato had. So I'd put Ayato like along with Beidou, honestly, because he still has that one niche, which is like Needle Bloom teams. Ilan, I mean, it's a second Xingqiu, and there's no bad side with having second Xingqius, except for, I mean, of course, Xingqiu does provide a bit more than Ilan. Like Ilan, while providing more damage, doesn't have that much Hydro application, and she can actually be more flexible in some cases, where her lower skill cooldown can allow leeway for errors, which makes her a lot more comfortable to play. But she doesn't have also the defensive utility that Xingqiu has, which is, yeah, a big blow to her use case. But she's still very good. Like, I mean, she's still S tier. Cookie, honestly, I think I might put her in, I don't know. Because I feel her use case also spiked significantly ever since Farina released, because now she can just heal also. And if you run another character with like Prototype Amber, that's pretty much enough to get Farina's buff up. I put her like below Fischl and above Raiden, because I find more use cases to run Shinobu now over Raiden. So okay, Heizo. I've used Heizo a bit, but not enough to like significantly judge his output. He's just worse Wanderer and worse Xiao. So he's also worse Sucrose, so there's that. Doesn't really have much going for him. I mean, if you build him enough, I guess he can be viable if you want to build him enough. But honestly, I put him in D because he just doesn't really have that many use cases, because you know Sucrose exists, and Sucrose just does his job better. Hinari actually has solid performance. I've used him, like, I just recently got him, so I've actually been really enjoying using him, especially in Keqing teams. He's a budget Alhaitham if you don't have Alhaitham, but at least he can utilize characters that Alhaitham wouldn't usually use, like Yai, or semi on-field support Raiden. So there's that also. So I do think that like you can run both, and they don't really compete that much for the characters that they use. Hinari at like above Kokomi, but I don't know, maybe here, or I'll put him below Childe. We're almost done. Okay. Next is Collei, and since people get Collei for free, it shouldn't be that hard to get constellations on her. If you get C6, it's actually pretty decent. He actually becomes very good in aggravate teams. Outside of that, if you don't have Nahida, or if your Nahida is being used in another slot, I guess she can fill in as well. She is still clunky with her bow, which I really don't like, and that's why I kind of choose that's why I choose Dendro main character over Collei. But if you have like teams where Collei is good in, then I'd put like Collei above here. Actually, wait. Why am I putting DMC here? I'd put DMC here. If you don't have Nahida, I'd put them above like the rest of the characters. But if you have Nahida, it kind of just makes him more relevant. That's why I put him there. So yeah, I mean, I would put them like this. Well, if you have, okay, I'll only put them like this if you have C6 Collei. If you don't have C6 Collei, I'd put them like this. Okay, this is gonna be controversial. I've made a lot of Dory videos recently because I think C6 Dory is significantly better than C0 Dory. And C6 Dory actually performs really well in certain teams. Certain teams. Not a lot of teams, but certain teams. Especially with Farina. Like, it makes her a lot better. I kind of would increase her viability up a bit. But again, you need C6 Dory, and who the hell has C6 Dory? So, I still put her like here. I'll put her like here. Yeah, I mean, she has her use cases, but not really good enough to warrant her being that good at all. Next is Sino. Sino is just Keqing, but in my opinion, worse. Because he's a lot more inflexible, and while, you know, Farina and Nahida come to support his long on-field time, I still don't think it's worth having him on field over having like Keqing being more flexible than him. Because being on field for way too long just leaves you with vulnerabilities to chambers that have multiple waves of enemies. So I kind of would put him a lot lower. I'd put him like, because he can run quick boom teams still very well, but I wouldn't say they are good enough where against chambers with multiple waves of enemies. Yeah, I'd kind of put him like here or here. I would want him one tier lower. Even though on paper against boss enemies he does perform a lot better than someone like Keqing or Yai, I wouldn't recommend pulling them if you already have Keqing. Candice does have a little use case in C6 because I mean no character really benefits from having Hydro Infusion besides like Nilo Bloom teams. Even then, that's just one Nilo Bloom team out of like a million Nilo Bloom teams you can make. And only at C6 does it really even matter. I don't consider her good. So I put her like D tier. Or like here. I put her here. Or no. I don't know. I really wouldn't put her like high. So Diluc, I would put her worse than Diluc, honestly. So yeah, there's that. Actually, I'd put her even below Animo and Geo Traveler. Nino is a character that once you have all the pieces to the puzzle of Nino, she can just insta-clear content. Like, she is the best AoE character at the moment. If you have the characters that make her good, like Nahida, any Hydro character like Kokomi, or Yao Yao, like, they just make Nilo very, very good. And so, I would put Nilo the best at AoE content. And if you have the right pieces, she can actually also be very viable in single target content. Although again, not as good as Wutao, but it can work well in single target. So yeah, there's that. Nahida is pretty much like the best Dendro character in the game. Nahida almost single-handedly invalidates all the other Dendro applicators in the game. She has an amazing skill that has 100% uptime. She has a burst that gives you so much EM to the point where it does quite a lot for your teams. She also has really good personal damage on her own with her E. Oh yeah, and you can also run Prototype Amber on her, so she just becomes a healer. So at this point, she kind of just consolidates every role that you want to support to fill. These three characters can go either way, honestly. It really depends on the characters that you have on your account. Like, you can make arguments for any one of these characters besides maybe Xiangling. Now, we have Lila. And I think Lila and Diona are pretty interchangeable. She provides a bit more damage and a bit more consistent cryo application and better utilization of the 4-piece Tenacity of the Millilith. So there's that. So I'd put her like at the B tier. So Diona and Lila have their own use cases. Honestly, I think Lila does have a bit more use cases than Diona. Here. Yeah. Skara or Wander. I don't know what to say about Wander. I mean, he's amazing in Overworld, but in like Abyss, he's just not good. Like, he's just not good. I'm just gonna say it outright. He's not good. Like, he's passable, and you really need to invest in him like a lot for any semblance of damage output to be coming out of him. So I really don't think that they are. I think he's worse than Xiao because he just has the worst knockback effect. When he's staggered, he's gonna really stagger. Like, it's gonna really disrupt your gameplay, so you really need a shielder. Honestly, I'd put him like below Yanfei. That's just how much I think that he's just not as good. And honestly, below Noelle. Farzan, I mean, Farzan C6, and even actually, I don't even think you need C6 that badly. Although C6 really helps. I don't have C6, so maybe that's why my Wander experience has been miserable. But, I mean, C6 Farzan has been decent. I mean, I guess Anemo carries aren't really that good to begin with, so I don't really see her value as high. What's the point of being an amazing Anemo support if the Anemo characters you're supporting aren't really even that good to begin with, and Anemo carry teams aren't really even that good to begin with? So that's just like the problem. So I'd put her like here. Al-Haytham. Yeah, Al-Haytham is amazing. He utilizes the best supports in the game very, very well. Like, his Quick Bloom teams are pretty much the best in the game right now. So, the way he utilizes like Nahida, the way he utilizes Xingqiu or Farina or Ilan, it makes his viability go up by a lot. And he just has the best teams that you can make right now. One of the best teams you can make right now. So there's really no disputing that Al-Haytham is pretty much like the best DPS in the game. Besides maybe Nivelle. Yao Yao, again, is another amazing Dendro support because she can heal. And she's pretty competitive with Beidou. And in some use cases, she's actually better than Beidou. I guess before Farina came up. But then, even then, like, she has better use cases than Beidou sometimes. So honestly, I'd put her like, I'd put her below Hu Tao. Or yeah, I'll put her below Huda. Honestly, I don't know. Since Beidou exists, maybe I'll put her below Zhongli and above Kokomi. Or I'll put Kokomi above her. Kaeya. Okay, I'm not gonna put her in bad because she at least has one use case right now. Which is like with the Roulette, which still kind of sucks and depresses me that that's her only viable like good team. I mean, she has Farina teams, which is just not good. You can make her work if you really force it. I'll put her like C. If she didn't have that Roulette team, she would be in T. Next, it's the Mr. Mr. Nerd Emoji himself. I even forgot his name. What the hell is his name? Mika. Oh, fucking stupid Mika. This dumbass kid. I mean, he's okay. Like, he is the best cryo healer right now, and cryo healers actually do have some semblance of viability in the game. So, I put like Mika here because he does, if I'm not mistaken, he provides an attack buff, which is just like Charlotte but better. And he does also provide attack speed buff, if I'm not mistaken. He's still not really that valuable because like Jean exists, and the characters that he supports aren't that amazing, but I mean, he does support pretty good like Farina teams, so there's that. Yeah, I'll put her at the, I'll put him at the bottom of A. Beidou, I mean, he's a shielder and a healer, and he shields pretty well, and he can hold the DODS, and he can do like pretty good stuff with Farina. So I think Beidou kind of just up viability nowadays. So I'll put him below maybe, because I mean, yeah, he does have a really good healing, and he's significantly stronger now that Farina's came out. He has decent Dendro off-field application, not better than Yao Yao, I'd say. One thing, if you're gonna pull for Beidou, he does not have amazing Dendro application, and if you're just looking for him for Dendro application, just pull for Yao Yao, honestly, because there's really not that big of a difference, especially in AoE content. Beidou is not good at AoE Dendro application. What he has is burst healing and a small shield that prevents stagger. Next is Kaveh, and this guy really just has no use case, even with Needle Bloom teams. He's just awful. Even as a Dendro driver, he's awful. Just don't even bother. He's so clunky to play, his attack animations are so slow, his constellations are pretty useless. He's just not good. Oh wait, when did I put Toma? When did I put Toma at D tier? The fudge? Okay, I'm sorry. I did not notice that. I'm sorry, I did not notice that Toma was in D tier. Toma's pretty good, especially with Virgin teams, I guess. At Scar teams at C6. Like, he's the best shielder, I guess, for that. He's gotten a lot better ever since his release, so I give him that. I think he's better than Yanfei, because he has more use cases than Yanfei. But his teams aren't really amazing though, so I don't think he's that good. So yeah, I mean, I'll put him like here. I'll put Yanfei lower because I just realized if you don't have C6 Yanfei, she's kind of just abysmal to play. So I'll put her here because I'm just putting her here because she has the potential to be better than Klee, okay? Next is Kirara. Kirara is not fun to play, but her shield is pretty useful, and she is good in needle teams as a comfort pick because sometimes needle teams are really squishy because you just get one-shotted by enemies if you're not careful. And since sometimes healing is just not enough, you really want that HP that Kirara provides with her shield. So she does have a use case. It's just not that big of a use case. Her burst is pretty bad. Her shield is not as strong as I wanted it to be. And she doesn't have any Dendro application off field, so yeah, it's not as good as I wanted it to be. So I'll put her here. Honestly, I'll put her here. So yeah, that's that. Linny. Okay. Linny has really good use cases when she works. Like, there are enemies that are immune to Pyro, which just invalidates his whole existence. But ever since Farina came out, he's just the best like mono Pyro character. I mean, there's really no one else that beats him in that regard. And Farina makes his teams a lot better and more flexible, at least. So you don't have to always run either Zhongli or Kazuha anymore. So I'd say he's around here. If you want to run mono Pyro. He is very squishy though, so you might want to run Zhongli. Lunat, yeah, she's just not good. You might want to run her with. Lini's just not good. I mean, she's just worse Hazel. The only use case I think of Lynette, a decent option, is if you're trying to run Scarra and you don't want to run a shielder and you think that the taunt is good enough for like the enemies to not hit Scarra, which is not often the case. So yeah. Honestly, she's worse than an emo traveler. I really don't see a use case for Lini. Even at C6, she barely is better than like Hazel. But you just get Hazel. Femine. Femine. I mean, Hyper Bloom Femine if you want to be cringe like that. But I mean, that's like the only team I think of using him in. And that's pretty much it. Like, Femine doesn't have that big of a use case at all. So yeah, there's that. Nuvalet, the solo god, right? He can just solo content on his own. And so I don't really need to say that much about him anymore. Because I mean, he's just amazing in like every team. Well, I mean, it's like, I remember seeing a meme where it's not the supports that carry him, it's him that carry the supports, right? Like, he just basically is a one-man army for the most part. He's basically an on-field Hydro character that deals more damage the more supports you pair with him that are not of the same element. And I actually feel like having a shielder with him, because if you're knocked out of your charge attack, you don't get it back anymore. So I actually found out that there are a lot of ways that you can kind of circumvent having to run a shielder. Like, just being well positioned helps a lot. You don't really need a shielder with him for a lot of scenarios. And for scenarios where you do need a shielder, there are a lot of shielders that work well with him. Also, another plus to him is that he actually does not need Farina at all to be functional. In fact, I'd say that him and Farina pairing is pretty overrated because Farina doesn't really give him that much more of a buff when compared to just having another different character with a different element. So it actually frees up Farina for the other team while him still performing almost as good without Farina. So that's another really good bonus that he has. Grizzly is just not good. I've been huffing a lot of copium and praying that at least he's somewhat decent. And I mean, he's somewhat, I guess, decent. But I mean, he's better than Scarra. He's better than some characters here. So there's that going for him. And he has that team with... It's a team that Jeff kind of cooked up. Which is, like, it's good, I guess. But it's still not what I'd say is something that's amazing. So I'd put him, like, above Xiao. But not very good. I'm not gonna be on copium anymore. I think that he's the amazing on-field cryo DPS. Next is Farina. And now I'm saying Farina is great. He's an amazing character. She enables characters to run Marchese. She allows characters to gain a buff that's greater than Kazuha. What else? She has just the right amount of Hydro application to separate her use cases from Xingqiu and Yelan. And she does generate a lot of off-field particles. She has 100% off-field uptime, so that's amazing. Yeah, she's really good. Do I say that she's better than Xingqiu? That's the question, because I've seen a lot of people say that she's better than Xingqiu. And I'm saying that she has her own use cases. If I had to say if Farina is better than Xingqiu, I'd say no. Like, this is a controversial take, but I think that Xingqiu is still better than Farina. But Farina is a character in her own right that I don't think you really should compare with Xingqiu. And I think Farina is just an amazing character for a lot of teams. Next is Charlotte. And now, I kind of thought Charlotte would be a terrible character when she released, seeing that her kit requires a lot of energy recharge to the point where you have to hold her E, which takes an insane amount of time for it to charge. I mean, it's not as bad as I thought it was, but it's still not really good. So yeah, you really need constellations to make her ER requirements like not be infinitely high. And if you get enough ER, you can run TTODS on her, and that's when I would say her use cases outpath. That's when I'd say her use cases become better than Mika. But if you don't have like C6 or not C6, C5, I think. T5 Charlotte, she's kind of useless if you don't have Mika. But yeah. Next is Navia. Navia is a character that I think is really good. Don't get me wrong. I think Navia is a really good character. Do I think she's an amazing character? No. Do I think she saves Geo? Not really. She's a really good character, and I think that right now she's better than a majority of the characters in this roster. So yeah, she's a really good Geo DPS. That's not even really Geo if you think about it, because she doesn't really work with any Geo characters at the moment. Like, she's fine as a crystallized user, but outside of that, she's kind of like just a random element character that's not Geo, because she doesn't feel like a Geo character at all. So yeah, I'd put Navia in this level. I'd put Navia above Ayaka. Now we don't have any of these characters yet, so I can't really say to their use cases. If I were to adjust this list, what would I adjust here? Maybe I'd add another tier, honestly, because I feel like this space, like the jump between power levels between here and like here, and some characters can kind of overlap. But I'm overall happy with this list, I guess. Maybe Thoma would go down a bit, or like go here, because Virgin teams are just not that good to begin with. Like, I'll put Thoma here. Yeah. What else do I have to say? I think Yoimiya kind of goes down because I think Hutao kind of just surpasses her in like every regard, and I think Noelle kind of just also makes her, is just better than her right now in AoE scenarios. I still think she's better than Scar though. So yeah, I think I'm good with this list. That's my take on it. I might make adjustments later, and I'll post my final list at the very end of the video. So it's been a day, and I've really took the time to think things over about my list. And there are some things I kind of want to adjust from my analysis. So first of all, Chevreuse just got added. So this is just day one of Chevreuse, okay? And from what I've seen from other people's clips and in my own understanding of her viability, she isn't really that good. I mean, I think at best she would make herself like at C0 she would be somewhere around here. I think she's somewhere around here at C0. At C6 she might be in B tier, but right now I think that her current state makes her a C tier character, especially because Overload is just not a good reaction. People say that Overload is amazing against boss enemies in particular because boss enemies can't get knocked back. But guess what else reactions are good against boss enemies? Literally almost every reaction is good against boss enemies. Melt, Vape, Hyper Bloom, like all those reactions can deal with boss type enemies and can't be hindered by AoE scenarios. I'll put her in C tier for now. Another adjustment I want to make, I might put Diluc above in C tier also, because while I've said that he is pretty bad, and I still believe that he's not good, he will be good once Xiangling comes out, because Xiangling buffs plunge attack and he has the highest plunge attack multiplier in the game. So when she comes out, I think he'd be up here somewhere, maybe at like B tier. But right now, I think I'd put him above Razor. Next change I would make is a big one. I'd probably move Xiangling down here, just because I realized that I just think Xiangling isn't as universal as the other characters in S tier. Next, I'd probably move Diona down. I don't think Diona's better than Shinha. And at C0, Charlotte isn't also better than Shinha. And yeah, somewhere around here. I'd put it like this, honestly. Like, I might put Navia a bit higher. I think I kind of underestimated how good Navia is, and I think she is up a tier by 1. So I think she is in an A tier spot. I'd put Goro above Ito at C6. But at C0, I would probably put him like even lower than where I put him earlier. What else? Oh yeah, this is not really that big, but I'll just swap the places between Nahida and Xingqiu. But then again, they are completely different characters, so like it doesn't really matter that much who goes where, in my opinion. Same with Yae. Honestly, I would put Yae a bit higher than Keqing, just because she also works in a lot of other teams that's not just Aggravate. Because Keqing specializes in Aggravate. Yae can be ran with Tainari, can be ran with Alhaitham. Actually, I'll put Diona along with Lila. At C6, they both provide their own strengths and weaknesses. I might put Kirara lower, honestly. So, I think I underestimated Yunjin a bit, but I still don't think she's amazing. So I can just put her up by a bit also. I think I should put Amber at the top of bad because Amber just has the most use cases. And I actually recently got C6 Sarah from the banner as well. I tested her. It's really clunky, and I still don't really enjoy running her over someone like C6 Fischl. Actually, I'm thinking of also putting Tighnari a bit lower, just because Alhaitham exists, and Alhaitham just does his job a lot better. Tighnari in my opinion is really fun to play, but in terms of meta, he's not the best character in the game. But I mean, he's perfectly fine also. He's perfectly serviceable for his role. I'd put Ayaka lower in this list as well. Honestly, above Risley and above Beidou, above Risley. So I'll put her around here. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the video. Comment to me if you guys agree with my list or if you guys would want to change something. This is just based on my own experience after 3 years in the game, and I think that I made a comprehensive list, so you guys can use this as a reference. And going to 2024, seeing how characters improve or get worse over time. See you guys in the next one. Bye.